have words. Let's have words. Say what it's all about. We're gonna say what it's about. Have words. We're gonna talk it out.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Let's Have Words. Let's Have Words is a Sunday night talk show. Comes to you live every week on Sundays, 8 o'clock Eastern Time, and we're broadcasting on WWHR Internet Media from the absolutely beautiful southern New Hampshire. And my name is Lara Samuelson. I am your host for the evening, well, for always, forever and ever. I am your host on Let's Have Words. So, welcome to the show. So you hopefully we have some people here who have never attended before. So for those people, I do want to explain that Let's Have Words is a talk show. So on Let's Have Words, what we like to do is, well, really what we're doing, our overall philosophy is that we're just sort of celebrating the art of conversation. And in that spirit, we like to either interview people, right? Somebody is an expert in some area of life. We like to sit down and have an interview, like we did last week with Carla Sorensen, who came on the show and talked about playwriting. She's a local playwright. That was a fascinating show. And so sometimes we interview people like we did Carla last week. And then sometimes we just kind of open the discussion for the audience and we pick a topic and we have people call in and or chat in with their comments and questions and participate. So the idea is for people to participate, and we try to pick topics that will appeal to a lot of different people for a lot of different reasons. So I'm going to introduce the topic momentarily. But I do want to remind you, if you'd like to call in or chat in, you calling in this particular format means that you come on with your video on, and you come into the room and we have a conversation. So you can always call in, even if calling in doesn't mean this kind of calling in. Hello, doesn't mean that kind of calling in. You actually come on with your video and we sit around and chat. And by the way, we can handle a multiple person discussion, so we can have more than one person join us at a time, and that's fine. So don't feel like if there's somebody in the room that you can't come on, because you certainly can. We'll let you in the door. All right, so calling in once again means that you come on with your video. But if you don't feel like coming on with your video for whatever reason, you can always just put your questions and comments in the chat. So, and let's have some words. There's Ronnie. Fabulous to see you as always. Glad you could make it. So, yeah, that's what we're doing here. Like Ronnie said, we're having words. So, and our topic, which I haven't introduced yet, right? I haven't introduced it. Our topic this evening is rebellion. All right, so we're having an open discussion once again. We don't have anybody to interview. So anybody that wants to come on the show and talk about rebellion in whatever context they'd like. I mean, I was actually doing, we're open right now. You can come on in any time. So I struggled with this topic, I gotta say. I thought it would be a really good one. I thought everybody could talk about it on some level. So here's some warm-up questions. Get your mental juices flowing. You can tell us who your favorite rebel is, or you can tell us, well, what do you think about rebellion? Do you think it's a good thing, bad thing for society? A little bit of both. The different kinds of rebellion. Do you think certain people? Are you a rebellious person? You can tell us your favorite rebellion story from your past. Would you like to be more rebellious? Are you becoming more rebellious? Are you becoming less rebellious? You can answer all those questions. You just come on, and we can take the conversation will go whatever direction it goes, based on your questions and comments. So Otherwise, I'm just going to steer the ship, and hopefully I won't steer it into an iceberg. All right, because I'm not very good at steering, let's face it. You should see me out there on the road. Anyway, all right, let's start. So I've got one opening idea here that I was thinking about. So first of all, the topic is rebellion. Please call in and chat in to join the discussion in any way that you any way that you wish. You want to share a personal anecdote. You want to talk about the philosophy of rebellion. You want to talk about social movements. You want to talk about people that in history that have rebelled, and some of the factors that influenced those rebellions. That's perfectly fine. Whatever you feel like. I think so. I'm going to kick us off with this. I think that we are. And this is not just what I think. I didn't just pull this out of my brain just without any sort of evidence at all. But I think a lot of psychological research has pointed to the fact that that we're conformists. Let's face it, humans we like to conform. We need to conform, in fact. In fact, we are socialized that way. Like we from a very early age, right? We're taught that we need to follow the rules of society, and we are even afraid. A lot of us develop sort of a fear response to stirring the pot or to questioning the status quo. So this is something that many of us are, not everybody probably, but many of us have been socialized to being polite, being civil, being respectful, all of these things that keep society together, right, and keep the calm and the peace, right? That's conformity, right? That's what we're doing. We're conforming to the rules. We're not questioning. As long as society is working for us, on some level. I mean, I don't think, there is always degrees of if it's working for you or not. But as long as it's working for you on some level, I think people tend to just conform. They're not gonna rebel because, they're relatively content. And on top of that, because I think you need that feeling of oppression and anger in order to gather up the mental energy to actually buck the system and rebel, right? And I think it helps to have a lot of support. I think you need a lot of other people. Most people need a lot of other people also to be part of a movement, to feel energized and actually rebel. So, but I think as long as people are relatively content with the way things are, and and we're socialized to conform, so we're not. It's very hard for us to, to question what's happening, to question the status quo. I think it's programmed into us, many of us, as part of our teaching. What we learn when we're very young. So I think it's hard for people to rebel. I think it takes really special people, and thank goodness for them. I just have to say, thank God for the rebels, or thank the rebels for the rebels. I don't know if God had anything to do with it. Thank you, rebels. I mean, I am a rebel wannabe. It's not like I don't protest or question authority or anything like that, but I don't think I've ever, had the stones to, lead a movement of some kind. I think I'll go along with a movement, but I don't think I've ever had quite the courage to lead the movement, or maybe my time has not yet come. That's all. That's what I think. I think I'm going to be a late bloomer on the rebellion department. So anyway, please call in, Shannon. Let us know what you think. Rebellion. What do you think? Do you think people are do you think certain people are more likely to be rebels than others? What are the characteristics of rebels? What kinds of people, good and bad? What kinds of people are rebellious? And do you admire those people or not so much? What do you think? Oh, we have our first caller.
Hello.
Hello, Conrad. For those of you that are unfamiliar with the show, this is Conrad, friend of the show, frequent caller on Let's Have Words. He likes to come in and he likes to be a rebel. Conrad, you're kind of a rebel. You always say in every conversation, not every conversation, but a lot of conversations that we have, you say that you're just, trying to, play devil's advocate, or just trying to like stir the pot, or just trying to like provoke with your, like the points that you make. Sometimes you're not making them for any other reason other than that. That's kind of rebellious.
Well, I grew up being a rebel to some degree.
All right, tell us about that. Tell us
Not
about
a
your
major rebel, but a minor rebel.
Okay, tell us about your minor rebel past.
Well, so there was two things. One is, I think, the natural teenage rebellion
Yes.
against all your, elders, parents, school, teacher, the system tell you
Yeah.
don't do this, behave like that, and so, so you 60s was a rebellion with the long hair, 70s that was a rebellion against the clean crew cut. Just
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
this
or
is-
just the norms, right? All the norms of society.
right. So when you're a teenager, you want to break the norms, and
Break the norms question.
I was definitely into that. This wasn't wisdom or
Yeah.
anything. This was just for the hell of it. It was cool for one thing.
Yeah, right.
It was accepted by my friends, and it was.
Right.
But
I think
then-
that, I was also a little bit of a rebel when I was a teen, not too much of one, but I think that I think I was just a rebel without a cause. I was like, I think there's constructive rebellion and non-constructive
Well, yeah, the thing I'm talking about.
rebellion.
The teenage rebellion has no.
It's just well, I mean, actually, it may be important in somebody's like, psychosocial development. It's important, I think, for some teenagers, and not all teenagers go through that phase, by the way, but they're more likely to. There's a large number of teenagers rebel to some degree, and I think it might be an important moment. They're discovering their identity, they're finding out who they are, and they're finding out what their principles are, and I don't know, it's just part of that whole
Well, so I do have-
exploration aspect of being a teen, being an adolescent.
So I do have a theory on that. You are proving, a teenage rebellion is you are proving that you can do things, not just listen to, not just be a monkey see, monkey do, but also
Right.
do something independent, be creative, be
Right.
free, be brave enough to do something against your parents, against the school. You know what I mean? And that psychologically, that's good.
Yeah.
Just, for me, it was. I don't regret it. You know what I mean? But I didn't rebel crazy. I didn't do crazy things.
Yeah. But
'Cause
I
have friends-
think, having been on the other side of that, like when I had a very brief stint where I taught high school for a very brief period of time. I couldn't handle it, to be honest. I just couldn't handle it. Let's face it. But there was a handful of kids that were fairly rebellious. But I always felt like they were just like I just felt they were rebelling for no reason other than to just
Exactly.
get attention. It wasn't like there wasn't any other, I was not an oppressive teacher, let's put it that way. I was so angry at them. I would actually say to them, I'm like, look, I'm just trying to teach you a little biology here. Okay, that's it. I'm not trying to put you down. I'm not trying to oppress you. I'm really, I just want you to learn what a chromosome is. That's it. And they didn't respond very well to that kind of stuff. But I mean, I just felt like a lot of it was just bullshit. They just wanted attention. They were getting attention.
Well,
Which is
they
not
wanted-
bullshit, but it's something.
No, but right. They
Kids
wanted
do.
to distinguish themselves and
Distinguish
I know,
themselves, yes. That's a
and I
better way
know,
of putting it. Yeah.
and again, when you're that age, you are growing and establishing a person,
Yeah.
and you need to have the strength that hey, I can do things. The bravery, if you wish, I can do something. Don't be just scared and I'm afraid of to do things. No, this you sort of practice.
Yeah, by pushing boundaries and stuff.
Right, and first of all, you learn some limits. Sometimes you get punched back, and then so
Yeah.
But I think it's healthy for teenagers. Again,
I do too. I think it's healthy too. I do. I wish there was more. I wish that school, like, I really felt when I was in high school in America, I felt like it was like a prison, and I think that it still feels that way to a lot of kids. And I think that if it felt less like that, I think fewer kids would rebel. If they felt more like that school was actually a way of, getting expressing themselves or getting some skills or doing things that they love to do, or if school was less itself was less rule based and less oppressive, I think in general it would produce less rebellious kids. I think it would produce more self-actualized kids. Maybe that's really naive, but I don't know. I just felt like the rules are what make you rebel. When there are too many rules and you feel like you're not being heard, you're not being seen, you're not being allowed to express yourself, you're being treated just like everybody else, like you're not an individual. In that environment, that's what causes a lot of people to rebel.
No, that's for real. That's on the more serious note, what you're just saying, right?
Yeah.
For adults, that what you described works for adults.
And for anybody, right? If you're not being seen, you're not being heard.
I just brought it up, we started with that for teenagers being rebellion is natural for, for 90%, for large percentage. And it's just bullshit, it's not.
But I wish schools would work. I wish there was some way, and I'm not smart enough to figure it out, but I wish there was some way to work with that instead of against it.
No, and to me, I grew up with
to nurture it.
I grew up with schools being much stricter than in the U.S.
Yeah.
And it was like military almost. You had to wear a certain suit. You couldn't.
Right.
You had to wear certain jackets. You had to be blue. Girls had to wear skirts, certain leather. They were very constrained.
Yeah.
The uniform, they call it school uniform.
Yeah. Well, some schools still have in the U.S. have uniforms too. Yeah.
Well, I don't see them much.
No, yeah.
Not the schools I went to.
Well, there's some people that think that uniforms actually promote equality.
Yeah, there is benefits like everything, right?
I don't know if that's true. We could talk about that. I don't know.
That's another, yeah.
I don't know. I think it's different. I don't know. I don't have the answers. But I do remember feeling like high school was a big waste of my time, and I just felt, like people were just trying to rein me in, and that's what it felt like, and that was true to some extent.
Yeah, but I think in a way that's what's good. I mean, the old-fashioned discipline.
I know you're a big fan of the old-fashioned discipline.
Well,
I guess there's pros and cons.
It has merits because it prepares you for a job. How to go to work, to punch the clock.
It prepares you for a conformist society.
Well, no, it prepares you for work or prepares you for college. Well, again, you have to. Whatever you do, you have to conform. If you're on a boat, you have to behave like a.
Well, right. I mean, wait. So conformity has its merits, for sure. Okay. If everybody was rebelling all the time, things would just be completely chaotic. You need some semblance of order in a society. I think I do believe that. I don't think you can just have constant rebellion.
Absolutely.
But what do you think of this? So what do you think of this quote right here? Apparently this is JFK from 1961. Conformity is the jailer of freedom and the enemy of growth. The enemy of growth.
Well,
because nothing changes without the rebel. And I think that's totally true. Like, if there rebellion, nothing changes.
Absolutely.
You need rebellion. Rebellion is necessary.
It's very true. It's very true. But also you need structure.
You need both.
Bingo.
You need both. I mean,
too much rebellion is no good. Not enough rebellion.
Oh, this feeds right into your entropy. Anyway, we don't want to go there. But right, it does. It like that. You need a little rebellion, a little structure, and but the problem is finding the perfect mix.
Well, it's a reasonable mix. Perfect is hard to never find.
Yeah, I don't think so. What do you think? Do you think that there will ever be we'll ever live in a society that's perfect and where nobody's oppressed? Everybody's happy and nobody's oppressed. Do you think that's even achievable?
I don't know. That's how they describe Eden, but
Which is a fantasy.
bingo.
I mean, I think there's always going to be there will always be people who are oppressed, and those
Well,
people are eventually going to get pissed, and
no,
they're
but
going to fight, and they're going to rebel.
no, but Kaylin, even in our daily lives, we have to do cleaning. We have to do things we don't feel like doing often. Chores, that's like oppression by just.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about serious oppression. I'm not talking about having to do a little bit of work. I'm not talking about having to sweep the porch. That's not what I'm talking. I mean, like serious exploitation and oppression, having to work really long hours, or having not having incredible injustices done to your people by the majority, in the society. Having, I think, I'm, workers are always, and the poor are always oppressed. Society never works for workers and the poor.
Well,
They're used
it changes over the years.
and
Right?
or cast
Like,
out, one or the other.
Unions were popular, were good 100 years ago. Then they got bad. And population was pro-union for a long time, except for the few
I'm
rich.
just saying I think society will always work for a few people and not for everybody, and therefore there will always be oppression. I don't think
Well-
you can have a society that works for everybody.
Well,
It's
you
never
talk
gonna
about
happen.
when you say oppression, you mean fairness, total fairness. Yeah, there's always going to be some unfairness.
I mean,
yeah.
everybody's basically content with the way things are, and there's no injustice.
No, but that would be boring.
What
That
it,
would be, that would be boring.
I think it's impossible. So I think but I don't know that it would be boring.
Yes, it would be.
Why? Why do you need oppression for things to be exciting?
Well, no, because it motivates you to do something, to change things, to do something grand. So there is, I'm not defending the bad, the nasty, but I'm not trying to do that. But some oppression is what drives you to change. I mean,
That's right. That's right. It's the engine. So Marx said it was the locomotive of history. Like you need change. You need rebellion. You need change.
Well, and then you need something to rebel against.
Yes, you do.
I mean, if you live in Eden, there's nothing to what are you gonna?
Right, which is never going to happen. So it's
Hopefully,
So
because
I really do. Yes, I think that there will always be oppression. Will always be, and for better or for worse. Like you said, there might be like if people are too happy, they tend to get complacent. I guess there is something
Exactly.
to that.
That's what I was trying to.
Yeah,
to
there
say.
is something to that. Yeah.
So we do need again, not too. You know what I mean? But it's tricky, obviously, because too much would,
Yes.
is unhealthy. Is bad for many ways.
We're going for moderation. Moderation here. Do you think you need a so here's another quote for you. I have some rebellion quotes with me tonight just to seed the conversation with a few smart people. So the philosopher, let's see, Hannah Arendt, she argued that the atrocities of the Holocaust were not caused by psychopaths, but by ordinary people placed under extraordinary pressure to conform. So I was wondering, like, in order for a serious rebellion to occur, like you can rebel in small ways, but I'm talking about a serious, all-out rebellion against, society. I feel like you do need somebody who's completely crazy to like lead the movement.
Well, Germans didn't rebel against Hitler.
Some did.
Very little.
They tried.
Very-
There were some.
but it was very few, you know.
They tried to, there were assassination attempts and the
Yeah, there was, right. Oh, definitely there were.
student, yeah,
But as a population, they
secret.
more or less went with it. You know, they were forced into. A lot of people were forced into it, but some actually said, "Hey, this is great."
No, I know, right? I understand that, but
Wow.
but I think she's saying that it's not, you can't necessarily just blame the you can't put all the blame on the psychos. I mean, it's also a bunch of people that just conformed to what what society was
Oh,
doing
absolutely,
and
absolutely.
didn't bother to question it, didn't bother to, they just went along, just put their blinders on and went through their
Sure.
lives. And I think a lot of us, I think that's a typical human response
No, but during Hitler
to,
days,
to
during Hitler days,
unfortunately.
if
Yeah.
you didn't conform and you made it apparent,
Yeah,
you as a German, you were sent to a concentration camp.
right. Of course, there's the fear factor, of course, too.
I mean, that's huge. You know, that's huge.
Right.
It's not a joke. You know what I mean?
Right, of course. No, of course.
It's stuff like that will scare people. 99% will be like,
Yeah.
and I don't blame. I understand it.
Well, you're right. But conformity can be wicked, or it can be what keeps society, relatively peaceful.
Right.
Right.
Well, it's both.
It
Right.
can do both. It can do both. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, but we definitely need rebellion.
Oh, you need rebellion. The rebels change things. That's they're the people that innovate. They're the people that, like this quote from JFK, "The enemy of growth." You can't grow without any
Right.
If people always just were happy with the way things were and didn't try anything different or didn't try to question what was happening, there wouldn't be any progress. There wouldn't be any growth. So it's definitely an important thing. But I think humans in general are conformists. I think that's our tendency as a group, psychologically.
Well, that gives you peaceful living.
Yes, and we don't want to piss people. We don't want to not be accepted by others.
Well, what happened?
We seek acceptance by others.
So one famous rebel it didn't work out well for, that it just came to mind, was Martin Luther King.
Well, yeah, he's a famous rebel.
And
Yeah,
it
lots of social justice leaders are natural rebels, right?
he spoke calmly. I mean, he wasn't a rebel.
No, he's a rebel. Absolutely, it was.
But
You don't have to be angry to be a rebel.
Right. Right. But that's what I'm right. Intellectually, he was a rebel, but he got assassinated.
Yep.
So the conformity is, there is a little bit of.
But there was also he galvanized a lot of people
Mm-hmm. Well, no, but
to make real change in
Absolutely.
society, and it's still, we're still in the civil rights movement. It's not like it just happened and that was it. We're there now
He
too.
kicked it off in a major way. So again,
Yeah.
except it didn't work out well for him. That's why we are prone by the nature of, by the desire, the survival, whatever you call it, the survival instinct
Yeah.
is to don't rebel, to, be careful how you rebel, whatever. Don't rebel.
Yeah.
That's what you were saying earlier, that we are conformists. And that's
We're natural conformists.
it's part of
As
the
long as we're
survival.
relatively content. Now, if we're pissed, it helps to be
Right.
angry about something, and that can trigger your
Absolutely.
rebellious instinct. But as long as you're relatively happy, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you're not necessarily inclined to rebel. You really need those people that are pot stirrers. I think there are people that are just sort of naturally rebellious, and you need those people. I think society needs those people.
Well,
And I
it's,
think I think there's as much as we conform, I think we do like to rebel as well, which is why riots happen and things like that, because there is this sort of instinct to like destroy too. Like we have that in us, I think as
I
well.
was I was just gonna say when you said
Yeah.
that we need people with the instinct to rebel, and I'm like, I'm not so sure because those are the troublemakers for no good reason.
No, not always. Sometimes they do
I
have a good
agree,
reason.
but often, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They just do it
Right. They're just
automatically,
right.
just rebel,
Right. It can be constructive or not. You're right. You're right.
and the people who are sort of in their nature, they do it automatically. Rebel
Yeah.
against anything, traffic lights.
Anything at all. Right. Right. That's what I mean. Like that's how I felt when I taught high school. It's the same thing. Like it's like with with the masks. It's just like just put the mask on your face. You don't. This is not something to rebel against. This is like we're all trying to protect each other from the spread of an infectious disease.
Right.
Rebel against something else. Like to me, that's just being a rebel for just for the sake of being a rebel.
Well, that's what I
Like
was saying.
it
Right.
was pointless.
That's what I was just saying. People.
Yeah, it's like
Some
find
people
a
are,
real reason
right.
to be angry.
That, that's
That's
why.
yeah, like you were saying against traffic lights. I mean, come on. I mean, thank goodness for traffic lights. They keep everything running
Yes. So I don't.
smoothly.
So personally, I don't like. You see, and I personally, I've actually had big change during my
Yeah.
life. That from a rebel as a teenager, then I had to conform at working and in college or whatever.
Yeah.
But then, as an engineer, I was a little bit of a rebel. But also, as I got more senior, I became the enforcer of the rules.
Ah.
And then I started to appreciate, again, be creative. Don't be totally stifled by what I
Right.
mean. Bring your new ideas to me, but don't just go get mad because of you don't like something. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
So I try to teach the younger people to, like a lot of new employees, younger people were like afraid to almost talk to me, and
Yeah.
and then I would go out for a cigarette with them or for lunch or whatever, and I would make them open, and then there were some that were always the naysayers, and this is the automatic rebel, and I'm like, no, this person, that was no good. Everything is always wrong. Everything is
Yeah.
pissed at everything. No,
Yeah.
so but yes, as I got older, and I think a lot of people, not everybody actually, I know some, yeah, but with me, with age, I became an enforcer at some point of the projects. I was the lead guy on a
Yeah.
project,
You went from being right.
so I had to, again, be creative, but don't break the rules.
All right. So we're having a discussion right now. This is Conrad. He likes to call in onto the show because he has got a lot to say, a lot of interesting perspectives on our topic. So tonight our topic is rebellion. If you'd like to come into the room, we are happy to have more than just the two of us in here. If you just want to listen, that's fine. And if you want to put questions and comments in the chat, that's fine too. Whatever you would like to do. If you want to rebel against the show, that's okay. We're all about rebellion today. So whatever floats your boat, please. We'd love to have you on the show. And we're talking about rebellion and all the aspects of rebellion. So, you know what I was thinking about? Like, I like the sort of the anthropological idea that like holidays, like we have these holidays, like a lot of societies, a lot of cultures have like holidays of rebellion, and sort of the purpose of them over time is sort of like to give people an outlet for their rebellious tendencies, so they won't actually rebel. Like in our culture, like Halloween is a rebellious holiday, which is probably one reason why it's the only holiday I like. Mardi Gras is rebellious, right? Like these holidays, like part of their function is to kind of give people an outlet for their rebellious instincts. What do you think about that?
Well, I grew up.
Esther?
I grew up without Halloween.
I know, but I think a lot of cultures have these holidays of rebellion. They're common. Yeah, I'm just saying those are sort of the American holidays of rebellion that we celebrate. Halloween, Mardi Gras. I can't think of any others right now, but those are the two I can think of. Easter, no, not really. Oh, New Year's. New Year's is a little bit rebellious.
Yes.
We get to be wild for a night. Yeah. Yep. Well, so rebellion, I think, is something, and there's a lot of times it doesn't take much to trigger like a mob, an angry mob, So people have that need to destroy, like that need to just really, tear down the wall,
Well, so
just for the hell of it.
in the Bible, there was an example of that, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, no,
the
you
big
tell
guy,
me. I'm
the
not
big guy,
I'm not a biblical scholar.
you know,
hate
the
to
big
say.
guy, Samson.
Yeah, Samson. Yeah,
You
I
know
know that
what?
guy.
You know what he's famous for, right?
Well, why don't you tell me? No, you tell me. I'll say it wrong. I know I will.
Well, he brought down. He was strong enough to bring down the temple. There were
Yes.
pillars, and he spread the pillars, and the thing fell.
Right.
That's the story. That's the story. I don't know
Yeah.
how historical it is, but and that was a rebellion against, for Judaism, against, I forget what the religion was.
Yeah.
The other, because they were oppressing Jews, I think. Again,
Yeah.
I'm not a biblical scholar, but either. But I've read the Bible 30, but a very long time ago. So
A very long time. Yeah.
I don't remember. Oh,
I browsed it a couple times.
no, I actually read the whole thing.
Well,
So,
it's good. I think it's important. I think it's important to know the Bible. I wish I knew it better because it's so influential in our.
So that was, like a famous
thinking.
mythical rebel.
You can be a rebel without violence. Absolutely. I like, sometimes I'm a rebel. Sometimes I'm a rebel in like small ways. Like I'll do little insurgencies, like daily insurgencies, just to buck the rules or whatever. But nobody notices, so it's no big deal.
Well, but that's
You
the
know.
mind, that's the psychological. No, but being
Yeah.
a major rebel is scary. Like I brought up Martin Luther, he got hurt, he got assassinated, and
Yeah.
just like when I lived under communism, we wouldn't rebel, in those days.
Yeah.
It was pointless. Later, 10 years later, or whatever,
Well, eventually the time came. Yeah.
things changed.
Right. Of course.
But
Time came.
we still lived in a pro-Stalinist world.
Yeah.
I mean, post-Stalinist, which was
Right.
not as strict as decades earlier, but still a lot of it was there, and so we rebelled only in a tiny ways,
Yeah.
not in no demonstrations. Cause,
Well, I think all the right ingredients have to be in place for a real rebellion to occur in a situation like that.
well, and I think whoever the early people who start this risk a lot.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, They
Right.
risk their lives or
Right.
risk imprisonment, things like that.
Yes.
Depending.
Yes, they
what-
have to be very courageous, very brave.
So there are major risks
Yes.
when you're early in that. Later, it becomes,
Yes.
less dangerous. But the initial rebel of certain, whatever, like Galileo was a rebel, right?
Oh yeah.
And where did he end up?
Yeah. Like there's rebels and like just, we're talking mostly about political movements and stuff, but definitely, in everything, in the art world, of course, yeah, in the art world, there are rebels that rethink how art should be. Like they rebel against and that's how art evolves. It's a nice little microcosm for the importance of the rebel. Like that's how art evolves. Like because people are like, I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to do it this way. So they're rebelling against the way, because there's always a bunch of people that are just doing the art the way it's done at that time, or music the way it's done at that time. There's a ton of examples, but then you need a few people that are just like, you know what, I'm going to try something else. And
Yeah.
those people like start a new movement, And that's how evolution
Well,
occurs
some of it
in
is
in the
innovation.
art world, in the music world, in the world of innovation, in the world of
Right.
science, like you
I was just
mentioned, like
gonna say,
Galileo.
a lot of what you're saying is like innovation, not so
Y-
much as a rebel, but
But it's the rebellious spirit that makes that happen.
probably. See, I think of a
Yeah.
rebel more as against something for good cause, or against, what I mean, a system.
Well, I have a definition somewhere. Did I write down? Let me see. I wrote down an actual definition. But I lost my definition. What did I do? Oh my goodness. Anyway, I had a real definition of what rebellion means, but I lost it. So, I think that I have a very loose definition of rebellion. I think a rebellious person is simply somebody who will not accept the way things are and won't just go along with it. Won't go along whatever the status quo is in whatever environment, whether it's in the workplace or in society or in the art world, music world, science world, as people that won't just go along with whatever the overriding, whatever the status quo is. They won't go along with it. They do something different. I think that is the rebellion spirit.
You see, I think more of rebellion is being against something, whether it's violent or
Well, they
not.
are against it. They're questioning it.
Well, questioning is a little different.
No, that's rebellious.
To me, rebellion is you have an axe in your hand and you go and you chop some heads down.
So, well, Mark Abair just mentioned that rebellion doesn't have to be violent. We think
no,
I mean, there's a lot of people. There's a lot of nonviolent protest, of course, but
Yeah, I understand.
it doesn't always have to be axes and pitchforks and
No, but I totally agree. But to me, a rebellion is against something always.
yeah.
Not just do something different, but also be against. But it's more being against something rather than just be different. Do something new in art. No, it's being against.
But if you're going to do something different, aren't you against the way
No,
things are?
no. To me, just being creative, innovative, and that's not rebellion. Rebellion to me is trying to squash somebody or
Yeah.
the system or a person.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a much looser definition than you do, I think.
Yeah, and I'm narrowing it. At least for me, it's much more narrower than that.
Yeah.
Because creativity and invention and inventiveness is not. It has a little bit. It has a similar result that it causes change. That's
Right.
correct. But again, to me, rebel is more against particular issue, group, system. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whatever it is, whatever convention.
Would you call yourself a rebel? Like just in general? Are you a rebellious person?
Not not
Not
much.
particularly?
Not particularly.
No.
No, I never thought of sacrificing myself for something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Taking risk like Martin Luther King did. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the
Taking a
early
big risk, being assassinated, being jailed, being
right.
being
Like,
brutalized, being tortured, being yeah.
Right.
It's it's incredible the people that lay it all on the line. It's hard to say though. It's hard to say if you're not really tested, you don't know what you would do in
well, true, but I never ran into, you know what I mean, that situation. Like we lived under communism, but it wasn't all that oppressive. You know what I mean? It was
Yeah.
oppressive to a degree. It was corrupt, but it was more corrupt than anything else. It wasn't really oppressive.
yeah.
They didn't hurt people. You just limited people, stifled things. But so it was corrupt, but not evil. So perhaps if I ran into something evil, then I would feel like, yes, I'm willing to take a chance, and But
Yeah.
I
It's
never
hard to say.
ran into anything like that. That's why I'm like, I'm not much of a rebel. A little bit that I question everything, but I question myself. So what am I rebelling against myself? No. I mean, it's hard, questioning the system, whatever it is, political or school. You know what I mean?
Yep.
At work, questioning how, that's
Yeah.
To me, that's not really
I always
rebellion.
feel like I try to go along with the rules, but I always end up, just inadvertently fucking up. Like I don't, like I try to blend in. Like I try to do things the way I'm supposed to do things, and then I always end up, not on purpose. I always end up doing things wrong, and getting in trouble. I don't know, but that's not rebellion. That's just
Clumsiness.
clumsiness is a good word for that. Yeah. I, I do
Rather,
try.
you ask for it.
I know. I know. I remember, I know this phrase, like, pick your battles,
Right.
and sometimes when I get really angry about something, I say, pick your battles, pick your battles. But now I realize I'm like 53 and I've never fought for anything really. Because I'm always telling myself to pick my battles, but I never pick a battle.
Well,
That's how I tell myself to just calm down and not get upset.
so
I'll
the
say,
only
pick your battles. But I've never picked a friggin' battle. I always pick to not pick a battle.
the only time I did that to some degree was at work
Yeah, what do you mean?
against my bosses.
You rebelled against your bosses?
Right. Well, I felt it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But again, I didn't feel I was risking my life. Maybe I'd risking my job, but not, which
Yeah.
is a lot different.
Right. Well, you're taking a risk, but it's not as big. Right. There's
Right, but
degrees of risk, of course.
I
Yeah.
didn't. It's not like I'm afraid of the guy that he's gonna shoot me. It didn't
Yeah.
work. It wasn't like
Yeah.
that.
Right.
So, but it was, but I chose my battles carefully. It's like there was no. I talked to him a bunch of times, didn't help, didn't change, didn't work. So eventually, I had to go over his head,
Yeah.
and it
But
worked.
yeah, but you don't want to just pick. You don't want to just say pick your battles and then never pick one. That's
Well, no,
what I'm
again,
saying.
I've done that. That's one
Sometimes
instance.
you do have to battle.
That's one instance at work. I did this once against a director. I had to go to the VP or the CEO, I forget now, and to fix it because I couldn't fix him. So so there was like I went, I did something sort of unusual. You know what I mean? I
Right.
went over the regular. You know, didn't try to beat him up or anything, but
Yeah.
but yeah, but
It's
yeah,
hard to
but
say.
to me, the only thing I try to change people, it's like if their behavior is inappropriate or so there's something it's like, hey, don't do this because you're gonna hurt somebody, you're gonna get hurt, But it's not rebellion. That's trying to change somebody's behavior or mind. That's not
Yeah.
rebellion. Yeah, that's not rebellion. That's just constructiveness.
Well, I think of it as psycho. I think of it.
It's tricky.
It comes from the same place psychologically.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's what I mean. It comes from the same basic, spirit. Even though there's degrees, obviously,
See, but
because there's degrees of risk, but it
See,
comes from the same place. Like, if I decide to, like, not conform to the dress code at work or something petty like that, I rebel against it. That comes from the same
Right.
spirit
right.
as rebelling against, like, an oppressive regime or something. It's just a different degree.
Absolutely right.
That's all.
Right.
That's all. All right, so folks, we're here and we're talking with Conrad about rebellion, rebels. Who's your favorite rebel? So people can write in, you can call in, chat in, and tell us
I haven't thought of one yet.
who's your favorite rebel. Conrad, do you have a favorite one?
I haven't thought of that.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I try not to worship people. I try to worship ideas. Because people always have, like, there's always something in there, some skeletons in their closet. Nobody's pure. I like the labor leaders, though. I'm a big fan of, like
Well, so there you go. There's the
Emma
guy.
Goldman and like so the labor leaders in
Right. So I
America.
feel like
Mother
forget-
Jones, people like that really was just spitfire. The people that led, like, the suffragettes and stuff, and Women. I'm a big fan of women who rebelled against
Okay, so one of my favorite rebels you asked, now you brought up labor, Joe Hill.
Joe Hill, Rosa Parks.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
So I haven't thought about it, so I'm not like prepared over.
No, I know. I understand. I haven't thought about it either.
Yeah, Joe Hill would be one because he was very peaceful.
Yeah.
But when it was wrong, he was,
Yeah.
inspiring.
Well, you mentioned Martin Luther King, of course.
Right, that's one. That's another one like
Yeah.
that. Right.
People like, some of the Native Americans that, stood up like Crazy Horse, stood up to the U.S. So, and people that are Geronimo, people that are standing up right now. There's a lot of political activity right now. Black Lives Matter movement. People within that movement. Well, there's always rebels. There's always something good there's always something to fight for. Or fight against. You're fighting for something and you're fighting against something, I guess, too.
Well, things keep changing, or
Yeah.
Actually, a lot of it has been around for a long time, and eventually people can't take it anymore.
Yeah. No, of course. That's the thing, is that at some point, and I think movements build momentum. I think they have to reach a critical mass, because it's kind of interesting, because I think when the rebellion becomes the conformity, like if you just take a simple, like if you say there's 20 people in a society, and one of them rebels, there's going to be like 9 or 10 of them that are going to be like, well, I'm not going to rebel because there's only one person rebelling. But then if there's 2 people rebelling, and then if there's 3 people rebelling, and eventually it becomes big enough that it's like you're actually conforming when you rebel, and that's when things really start taking off, because that's when people will start joining the movement, right? Because they'll feel safe. They'll feel like, oh, this is the expectation. This is the norm now. The norm is to rebel. And that's when a movement really happens. It happens like really slowly, because it has to reach that like critical mass where it really starts gaining momentum. When enough people feel safe doing it, they feel like, oh, this is the new norm. Like this is and it taps into their conformist instincts. When rebellion becomes conformity, that's when movements actually really take off, I think. That's my profound thought for the day.
Yeah.
I was like, really? Not so profound. Not so profound. I think that's true. I just thought of that. I'm sure I'm not the only person to ever think of that. Okay. All right. We only got a few minutes left. We are talking about rebellion here. And go ahead.
I want to pitch a song to you called Rebel Girl.
Rebel Girl?
And it's written by Joe Hill.
Oh, okay. I know some of the labor movement songs. I don't know if I know that one.
Yeah, so
but we're not putting anything on the screen, though.
No, I'm not trying.
Not right now. All right.
I'm just.
No, nothing like that. Yes, so I think we've come to the conclusion that I think Conrad and I agree that we need conformists and we need rebels. We need both. We need a little bit of both to keep, to keep things flowing. You need rebels to make change, and you need conformists to maintain the order in society. You need a little structure and a little craziness. Whoop. Are we done? Oh, we're wrapping it up, I guess. Okay, so, folks, we were talking about rebellion tonight, and we had a delightful conversation with our friend Conrad, and about all aspects of rebellion. We went a lot of different directions, as I suspected that we would. It's actually a pretty large topic, so a lot to say about it. And like usual, we didn't come to any actual conclusions. I wish to conform to the rebellion. Me too. I think my rebellious time is yet to come. I think I'm going to be a late bloomer in the rebellion department. I feel like I'm gonna reach a point where I'm gonna truly lead a movement at some point in my life. We'll see what happens. But in the meantime, we're just rapping on Let's Have Words. So we had a great show tonight with talking to Conrad about rebellion, and we had Ronnie who put some comments in there. Thank you very much, Ronnie. Appreciate having you on. Appreciate you listening, and anybody else that was listening, we appreciate having you. And we're here every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We are live, and we're broadcasting on WWHR Media, Internet Media, and I am Lara Samuels, and this is Let's Have Words, where we talk about stuff, and it's just basically a celebration of the art of conversation, and a lot of times we have a person on the show that we interview, and sometimes we just have an open discussion like we did tonight, where we introduce a topic, and we just kind of shoot the breeze. So either way, we love to have people participating, and what we are looking for is people to actually come on the show and be interviewed. Please do not be shy. We entertain a lot of potential topics. We cover everything from the mundane to the profane to the profound. We're very broad in our scope. So please do not feel, if you have something you think might work on Let's Have Words, if you have something that you'd like to discuss, please feel free to write to us at wwhrmedia@gmail.com, and we will entertain the possibility of having you on the show for sure. And love you all. And spring is sprung. I was out walking around today and looking at all the little buds coming out and everything. It's an exciting time, and it's good season to rebel. So let's all rebel a little bit this year. All right. Take it easy and keep the lines of communication open.